Here's something strange nobody questions. Every glass of milk comes from a female cow. Obviously, cows produce milk, bulls don't. But a dairy cow doesn't just produce milk on command. She has to give birth first, every single year, to keep producing it all. And a pregnancy doesn't guarantee a female calf. Roughly half come out male. So what happens to all those male calves, born into an industry that has no use for what they'll never become? The answer starts with a detail most people never think about. Milk production and calf birth are permanently linked. A dairy cow can't simply make milk the way a machine produces a product on a schedule. Her body only lactates after giving birth, and to keep that milk flowing year after year, she's bred again roughly once a year. Every pregnancy produces a calf. Every calf has to go somewhere. If the calf is female, the path is straightforward. She'll likely be raised to eventually replace an aging dairy cow, continuing the herd. But a male calf can never produce milk. He's biologically incapable of doing the one thing the entire operation exists to produce. And unlike specialized meat cattle, a dairy breed bull calf isn't built for beef production either. Dairy cattle have been selectively bred for generations to maximize milk yield, not muscle mass, meaning they grow leaner and slower than dedicated beef breeds. This is where the industry made the same strange move seen across modern animal agriculture. Instead of one animal doing multiple jobs, farmers created specialized breeds. Dairy cattle optimized purely for milk output. Beef cattle optimized purely for meat and growth rate. Two increasingly different animals, still technically the same species, bred apart from each other for entirely separate economic purposes. Which leaves the male dairy calf in an uncomfortable middle ground. Not useful for milk, not efficient for beef, born into a system that never needed him in the first place. Historically, this problem barely existed. Small mixed farms kept a bull for breeding and simply raised the rest of the herd together, milk and meat both coming from animals that weren't specialized in either direction. It's only once dairy farming industrialized, herds scaling into the hundreds or thousands, that every non-productive animal became a measurable cost. Feed, space, labor, time. A calf that can't produce milk and can't efficiently produce meat becomes, in purely economic terms, a liability the moment he's born. One historical solution was veal production, raising male dairy calves specifically for meat, often over a short number of months. It's a direct answer to the same underlying math. If you can't use the milk, at least use the meat. But veal comes with its own economics, different markets, different demand, and historically, welfare practices that became widely controversial once the public understood the conditions many calves were raised in, which pushed significant reform across the industry over the past several decades. Another approach mirrors something increasingly used in poultry farming, sexed semen technology, which allows dairy farmers to dramatically increase the odds of a pregnancy producing a female calf in the first place. It's a direct technological attempt to prevent the unwanted male problem before it happens at all, solving the biological mismatch upstream rather than dealing with its consequences after birth. Here's the part that reframes the whole situation. Cattle weren't originally bred for one narrow purpose. Historically, a single cow might provide milk, eventually meat, labor pulling a plow, and hide for leather, one animal serving several roles across its lifetime. Male cattle in particular held real value as draft animals for centuries, pulling equipment long before mechanized farming existed. The male calf wasn't always a problem. He became one specifically when industrial dairy farming split cattle into narrowly specialized categories, and an animal's economic value became defined by how efficiently it filled exactly one role. Which raises the same uncomfortable question that shows up across modern animal agriculture again and again. A perfectly healthy animal, born with no defect, no illness, nothing biologically wrong, can become economically difficult to justify simply because of a coin flip at birth. That's not something built into the animal. That's something built into the system surrounding it. This is the pattern underneath domestication generally, not just dairy. Humans don't just tame a species and leave it alone. Over generations, selective breeding reshapes the animal itself around whichever traits happen to be profitable, until eventually, two populations that share the same DNA are functionally doing completely different jobs. So the male dairy calf isn't rare because he's inedible or unhealthy. or lesser in any biological sense. He's rare in commercial relevance because an entire industry was optimized around his sisters, and he simply happened to be born on the wrong side of a system humans built long after cattle themselves had any say in the matter.